Greetings, friends. Please receive a first person narrative about Joseph's cycle. I give it a theme that says, from being a rejected slave to an exalted ruler. And I based that on the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Close quote. This manuscript is centered around the life of one person. It is a narrative that is about the historical background of Joseph, the expression of the theological meaning of the life he lived, and the devotional significance of his life. I'm convinced that no one can proudly claim to know the formula of life other than God, the creator of everything, and God who has plans for every human being. The Bible is telling us about the appealing story of Joseph, who was on the fourth generation of Abraham lineage. He was the great-grandson of Abraham. I can argue that the plan of God was solely not on firstborns. As I noticed the traditional pattern, for instance, Isaac was the younger son of Abraham, but he received the inheritance of his father, according to Genesis chapter 21, verse number 2. Jacob, the younger twin of Esau, received blessings from his father, and Israel was named after him. Even Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob. This proves to me that the natural heir is not blessed, and God chooses who receives his grace. Joseph was his father's favorite. He even designed a special robe for him that resulted hatred from his brothers. Joseph had a special gift of knowing what is going to happen in the future through dreams. For instance, he dreamed them playing with sheaves of grain. Surprisingly, their sheaves of grain bowed down to his sheaf. His brothers hated him more as they interpreted that he will be their king. The second dream was about the sun, moon, and the 11 stars. And the father interpreted the moon and the sun as himself and the wife, and the 11 stars as his brothers. And the father kept that dream. Joseph was always at home whilst his brothers were on the field shepherding the flock. One day, his father sent him to them with the intent of looking at their well-being. Suddenly, they thought bad about him. However, Reuben, the eldest brother, protected him by appealing to them not to kill, rather throw him in the well. And Judah sponsored to sell rather than killing him, as we are of the same blood and flesh. They sold him to the Ishmaelites with 20 shekels of silver and ended up in Egypt. He failed to understand the motives of his brother by selling him. Potiphar realized that God's hands was upon Joseph, as everything he touches turns into gold. He even delegated authority and decision-making of everything to Joseph, as he noticed a great character and a skill in executive leadership. The wife of Potiphar took notice of Joseph and attempted to seduce him in a variety of ways. But Joseph was determined to avoid her. However, one day he was found alone and seduced, and he tried to flee, but left his garment in her grasp. He got accused of being assaulting her. He was arrested. Genesis 39 is a wonderful story of sexual purity. Bravo to Joseph. Pharaoh had two terrifying dreams and none of his advisors could interpret for him. Potiphar told him about the intelligent Hebrew who used to leave at his house. His extraordinary abilities in dream interpretation. He sent people to bring Joseph. Joseph said, "It is not upon my ability to interpret the dreams. However, God can tell you the actual meaning." Then Pharaoh explained the dream. Joseph replied that your two dreams are merged into one. The 7 fat cows represent the 7 years of prosperity and abundance for Egypt. However, you will be followed by 7 skinny cows, which are the years of hunger and drought. These years are famine and scarcity. They will devastate the Egypt land. You need to find a wise man and place him in charge of Egypt land, guarding the crops in years of prosperity and abundance, and ensuring that your people have enough to eat during the era of drought. Pharaoh was impressed and opted to appoint him as an administrator of his lands and crops. The Hebrew man became a powerful man in Egypt, and what Joseph predicted happened. People came all over to Egypt to buy the wheat. Canaan also was affected by the scarcity, and Joseph opted to send his sons to come and buy the wheat. They were welcomed by the prime minister, who was Joseph. Smith 1993 explains 5 evidence that Joseph was a good farmer. For instance, because of the ability to keep 20% of grain in all stores before the famine era. Hence, the food was available during the famine. Citizens were able to exchange their money for food from the government during the first stages of famine. Citizens were able to trade in their lands, their herds and flocks in order to get food. As a result, he bought all the livestock from the people in Egypt. The people even offered to sell their lands to Pharaoh in exchange for food, except the priests. Joseph made a fortune for Pharaoh as he headed all the lands and supplied the farmers with seeds when the famine was over, and they continued with the 20% tax to Pharaoh. Joseph's father settled in Goshen with his family and became influential between the Canaanites and Egyptians, that Hebrews can grow in being a great and powerful nation. Joseph died and his family died, and all the generation that knew him died. Then things changed as children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and the land was filled with them. Lesson about the story. Do good even to your enemies, as Joseph did. Not only forgave his brothers' offenses, he provided them with all the livelihood. He knew how to interpret the adversaries he gone through in the face of perplexity of his brothers. He declared to them that God has sent him before their face to preserve their succession in the earth, to keep you alive for a great deliverance. Joseph further advised his brothers about their skills that resulted them in getting appointments as shepherd of Pharaoh's flocks. We need not to take things as they are happening in our lives, and we need to change the lenses we see the obstacles and challenges. We need to find God in every situation that we are encountering. In conclusion, the life of Joseph is a lesson to us as we are not going to always receive our blessing on a silver platter. We need to see beyond the pressures or impediments. It also teaches me to look differently on everything I experience. God had good intentions about the life of Joseph. I thank you.